Hello everyone, in this episode I'm sharing 3 recipes: stir-fried bean sprouts and garlic chives, or 鲜炒豆芽和青龙菜, and also black tripe with scallions, or 葱爆黑毛肚, as well as steamed fish with pickled peppers, or 剁椒蒸鱼. We're now going to start by preparing the black tripe. Now there's 2 types of tripe you can buy in the market. They're either black or white. Black is more natural tasting and flavor. It's a stronger flavor. The white ones have been bleached, so the flavor is milder. So pick the one that you like, but generally black tripe is going to be harder to find, and I had to buy this in Chinatown. We prepare about 200 grams of it, and we'll cut it into strips of about 4 millimeters. Now, this tripe had a bit of water in it, so I actually had to slice a bit more, but I measured out 200 grams, and we're now going to clean it, which is pretty simple. We'll just add a little bit of cooking wine and some water to it, and then we'll scrub the tripe. So tripe is an offal. It's an organ meat, particularly the cow's stomach lining, or one of its 4 stomach linings to be precise, because it has 4 stomachs. We just soak it in there and leave that overnight in the fridge. We'll prepare some ginger and scallion pieces, the green parts and the skins. We'll save those for another purpose. We'll prepare 100 grams of white scallion, as well as a piece of ginger. That's probably about 20 grams. We'll also need a bit more scallion and another 20 grams of ginger for another purpose. We'll get to that later. We'll make a diagonal cut for those 100 grams of scallions. This will be used to stir fry together with the black tripe, because scallions have a sweet flavor and can also alleviate its barnyardy taste. We'll then take some slices of the ginger and cut it into diamond-shaped pieces. This is a piece that's small enough to bring out the aroma of the ginger, but big enough that it adds texture to the dish. Although you can feel free to mince the ginger if you don't want to be biting into ginger when you eat this. We'll simply cut it into diamond-shaped pieces and set it aside. We'll now cut the scallions here. These small pieces of scallions, I'd say that's about 30 grams. And then we'll dice them. So julienne them and then dice them. These diced scallions will be used for the pickled chili sauce that will go with the steamed fish later. You don't have to mince those too finely, because the sauce should be a nice coarse texture anyway. For the ginger, we'll do the same. We'll cut it into a few small pieces and then smash them. And then mince them up. Now, it's a pickled chili sauce, so these are just side ingredients. The main ingredient is going to be pickled chili. But ginger, scallions, and some garlic can also enhance the flavor. We're going to chop up some garlic in a moment. But before that, let's prepare a screw pepper. Take some nice thin slices of the screw pepper. This will also be stir-fried with the beef tripe. And we'll also just split a few red bird's eye chilies in half. This will, of course, add the spicy flavor. You can also leave it out if you don't like spice. We'll now prepare some garlic. I've separated them just so that I know that they're for different purposes, but of course, you could just chop them all together. This is 60 grams of garlic, and the other one is 20 grams. We'll first pound each clove once, just to loosen the skin, and then we'll peel each one. Then we'll do the same with the rest of the garlic. We'll then start mincing the garlic. We need 20 grams for the pickled chili sauce, so we'll set that aside once it's done. Once this garlic's minced, we'll put it together with the rest of the things we've just chopped. And then we'll now mince 60 grams of garlic. This is because we need the garlic separately for this purpose. We'll need 30 grams to stir fry with the chives and bean sprouts. And we'll also need 30 grams to fry with the tripe. Now, this is what the garlic chives look like. We'll just give them a nice rinse and then chop them into pieces about this length. They tend to have dirt on them, so make sure you rinse them nicely. We'll add a bit of salt and then we'll scrub them. This will draw out any insects that are stuck on the chives. It will also season them, of course, but most importantly, it draws out excess moisture, because excess moisture is the enemy of wok hei, so we're getting rid of that. One pack of chives like that is about 160 grams. We'll also prepare some bean sprouts. This is 300 grams, but I only need 200 today. We'll also soak them in water and then add some salt to this water so that we can clean them. I'm using a bigger bowl now because I realized that bowl's a bit too small. Alright, so once you've rinsed those bean sprouts, we'll do the same thing. We'll scrub them with a bit of salt to draw out the excess moisture. Now, note that this step should not be done too far in advance, and the bean sprouts should not be left outside for several hours, because this might cause them to oxidize and then they'll develop a sour taste. So either put them straight back in the fridge or skip this step entirely and blanch your bean sprouts for 30 seconds in boiling water. We'll now prepare a packet of tofu, soken tofu. This is 300 grams, and we'll cut it into pieces and then we'll arrange them on a plate. Now, after cutting the tofu, it's going to leak a bit of water, which is perfectly fine. That's normal. We'll just pour out the water periodically. So we'll cut this block of tofu in half lengthwise, and then take some nice slices until you've got the thickness that you want. The tofu is great because it absorbs that pickled chili sauce. You can also use sweet potato noodles or anything that soaks up the sauce nicely. Put it at the bottom of the plate and spread it out so it's nice and even. We'll set that aside for now. Finally, we're going to chop up those pickled chilies. These are homemade pickled chilies, but you can buy some at the pickle jar in Chinatown. We'll cut off the heads and then we'll just mince this up. We don't need to go too fine on the chopping here. This is about 100 grams of pickled chili. And these are the big red chilies. They're not very spicy, but they have a nice color. Alright, and then we'll set those aside. For the fish, I'm going to be using fish fillets that I'll show you in a minute. But for now, we're going to chop up with the pork. We'll start by removing the skin. Now, these were sold to me as stewed pork slices. This is not pork belly. This is probably from the rear leg of the pork. I'm removing the skin and excess fat, and then we can save the fat. Now, we try to take some thin slices of the pork, but because this pork is not frozen, it might be slightly difficult to cut. For this reason, after taking slices, we're going to pound it with the back of the knife to make it a bit thinner and make the meat more tender. The purpose of adding meat to the stir-fried garlic chives is so that we can get more meat flavor, and the lard can also provide more fragrance and absorb more flavors. We'll stir-fry the beef tripe with lard for the same reason. Alright. You can prepare 2 fish fillets. These weigh about 500 grams in total, and this should be perfect for 2 hungry people or 3 not so hungry people. We'll add a little bit of salt to each one, and then we'll just rub that in, just to give the fish a base flavor, of course. These are pretty thick fillets, so don't be too reserved on the salt there. But at the same time, don't go crazy. We'll just add a few pieces of spare scallions and ginger underneath the fish so that it can steam together and alleviate any fishiness. You'll notice that I'm using a non-stick pan here with some water in it and a steaming setup. So we'll set that aside to the other burner as we heat up our main wok here until it's smoking. Then we'll add a little bit of oil to grease the wok. We'll then fry off some scallions and ginger in it. The purpose of this is to make a nice scallion oil. that we'll use to stir fry the beef. The beef tripe, that is. Once it's nice and golden brown, we'll drain and discard the scallions and ginger. We won't be needing it, we just want the oil. Alright, cool. We'll add in the chopped lard, chopped pork fat, and render out the lard from it. There's not a lot of fat though, so it's not going to be very much. Once that's done, we'll add in that pork, and then we'll just spread it out. Now, because we did not marinate the pork slices, they're going to be not as tender, but they're not the main feature of the dish. We're just adding them to add some meat flavor to the stir fry. Turn up the heat and we'll just stir fry the lard out of them, and then add some light soy sauce for color and flavor. Once that's done, we'll remove the pork, but we'll save most of the oil that has come out of it. We'll now add in our bean sprouts, which should be nice and dry. Make sure to wok some high heat, and then we'll toss them and stir fry them for a little bit. You can also tilt the wok like that. And this is going to give us the nice breath of the wok working its way into the bean sprouts. We'll set this aside once it's done because bean sprouts cook quickly. Add a little bit more oil and we'll stir fry the green chives the exact same way. You need to hear that cracking and sizzling popping sound the moment the chives go in, otherwise it's doomed. We're going to work the extra moisture out of them, if there's still any left over. And if there's too much moisture and you try your best to get the breath of the wok into the vegetable, it's going to lose its green color, so make sure it's nice and dry. We're going to add some garlic. Now that was the 60 grams of minced garlic, but we only need about 30. I'm going to add a bit more than that. There we go. And we'll stir fry the garlic briefly to get a nice fresh garlic flavor into the vegetables. We'll then add our pork back in, as well as the bean sprouts, and then we'll finally stir fry everything together. Now, there are more bean sprouts than chives because the chives tend to shrink when you stir fry them. If you prefer, you can of course use more chives and less bean sprouts. We'll finish everything off by seasoning with a little more light soy sauce and some white pepper as well as chicken powder. The reason for not adding salt is because salt will draw moisture out of the vegetables. Finally, toss everything together to distribute the seasonings evenly, and then we're done. Pour a little bit of water into the wok so that we can clean it, and we'll heat it up. Once it's boiling, we'll just pour that water away. Turn the heat back up again and let that wok get nice and dry. And then into the dry wok without oil, we're going to burst the flavor out of the peppers. You can add a tiny bit of oil if you're concerned about sticking, but not too much, because too much oil actually makes it more difficult to work the flavor out of those peppers. At this point, I'll add in my scallion oil, as well as the ginger. I've turned the heat down a bit so that it doesn't burn, and then we'll add in the garlic once the ginger is fragrant. You can also use lard to stir fry this, so it'll make it even more fragrant. We'll add in some green Sichuan peppercorns, and this will alleviate the gamey taste even further of the beef tripe. We'll add that in, and this is where I made a critical mistake. The wok was not hot enough when I added the tripe in there. It cooled down a lot at this point. And you cannot stir fry tripe for too long because it starts to get tough, alright? It should be nice and crunchy, chewy, but it's too tough if you stir fry it too long. As you can see, when I added the scallions, there was absolutely no sizzling, so don't make the same mistake I did. Make sure your wok is at a very high temperature before doing these steps. Stir fry everything together. Same thing with the yellow wine. I should have added it when the wok was hotter. And we're now going to have to wait for that to evaporate. We'll add some white pepper, again to alleviate the gamey taste, and a little bit more sugar to balance the taste of the entire dish, as well as chicken powder for the savory taste. If you prefer it more savory, you can add some light soy sauce. If you want acidity, add black vinegar. Stir fry everything together, and then we'll turn that out. It's not a very pretty looking dish, but it's very home style, and I think it's a pretty unique texture, so I suggest you guys try it one day. Finally, add a bit more oil to the wok, and we'll add in the chopped spices as well as chopped chilies to make the pickled chili sauce for the fish. The steaming time for the fish, by the way, is about 8 to 10 minutes for a fish fillet that thickness, so don't steam it too long. Alright, add a bit of water to that sauce, and then we'll add some chicken powder for savory taste and sugar to balance the acidity. Alright, that's the fish. We'll gently put those cooked fish fillets on top of the tofu, skin side down. That water down there is pretty fishy, so we're not going to use it. We're just going to put it back in there, and then we're going to top the fish with the pickled chili sauce. Now, if you want the sauce to cling to the fish better, you can add a bit of cornstarch slurry to the water. Alright, we're going to spread out that pickled chili sauce all over the fish. And it's going to be a nice little flavor, not too salty, but it's going to be good. And that's it. And that's how you make the 3 dishes. Just simply steam that fish for a couple minutes and it'll be done. So I'm presenting the 3 dishes one more time. Of course, if you've got questions about the preparation, leave it in the comments. Thank you.